All right. Well, welcome everyone. Let's see. We have 1, 2, 3. That's a quorum. So we're good. Oh, 4. Hey, Bob.
Hello.
Hi, Bob.
Welcome.
Just happy to be here, man. How about y'all?
We're happy to see you.
Well, now that we're on 6:30 again, some human hour.
So we were just getting started. We've got 4 of us. Tim will join us late. He's got some kind of a coaching winter sport meeting. And I think everybody knows everyone. We have guests, Katie Majori and Susan Olson and Roger Coombs, and really our ex officio member, Ray Harris.
Ray's really a member.
He's a member, right?
Sherry's in the mall.
Right? You never know where she is. Sherry, say something. We didn't hear you right there. Is your audio working, Sherry?
Now it will be.
She's connecting. Okay. All right. Good. So this is a special meeting because we set up the timing of these meetings recently, and it didn't get I guess it needs a 30-day or a 1-month notice. So this meeting did not get enough notice to be considered an official meeting. So it's a special meeting. And I think the main impact there is that we need to stick to the agenda, right? But we can actually take actions. We can vote. We can do stuff. So I don't know, Bob, do you want to run the meeting or?
Happy to do so. All right. Are we like recording with, are we on?
We're on.
Okay. I didn't even know now that you said special meeting, we had to do that, but yeah. Okay. So the meeting will call to order. There's no objections. And let's move to the first agenda item, which is, as always, public audience. Welcome to our publics.
Thank you. Hello.
Comments? Anything for the good of the order here? Roger, of course.
Wonderful job on the document, by the way. I think you guys, again, this is one of my most enjoyable groups to sit in on. So I've just stuck something in the chat that I was at a meeting with Bloomfield. Again, thanks to Susan Olson for all, she knows everybody, it seems. But we had about a 2.5-hour discussion about putting in the short sentence that I just put in the chat, which says endorses an effort for the state to support a carbon fee and dividend approach to pricing carbon. Since I've seen you last, the reason this, I think, is so important to add to this is in late December, Governor Lamont signed the Transportation Climate Initiative, the TCI. And the TCI is a tax. It's a tax, actually, on gasoline and diesel. And a carbon fee and dividend system would go to the very beginning of the whole fossil fuel stream at the well and at the mine and stuff like that. What this tax is doing in Connecticut, which is a carbon tax, is it's taxing the fuel, the content of the carbon content of transportation-related fuels as it crosses the border and comes into Connecticut. So they are going to take 35% of that money minimum and give it to disadvantaged and overburdened communities. They expect to raise about 80, let's see, it was quite a bit of money over a period of time, and about $80 million or more a year from this. And there's a lot of organizations supporting this because it is something that puts a price on carbon, which we are in favor of. But I think a better balanced approach for the state would be to a carbon fee and dividend, because that would go back before the middlemen in the petroleum and fossil fuel industry get paid. So what a carbon fee and dividend going to the source would do would reduce the impact on people who drive cars and trucks for a living. And we would see that come in terms of any natural gas system that had electrical generation that would be tacked onto the power bill, but it would be much smaller than the estimated 14 to 35 cents a gallon that they expect the TCI to add to Connecticut gasoline. So the reason I'm suggesting this be put in here is some other cities are doing this. Bloomfield's going to put it in theirs. Stonington is putting it in theirs. The Hartford and the Bridgeport teams are requesting that the city does that as well. And I had a meeting just before this and have a meeting at 7:30 with another city. Looks like New London and Groton are also interested in adding this, but we're in very, very early stages. So the reason I think it's important to add is that it makes the town aware that there are different ways to tax or put a fee on carbon, and that that means that if something starts impacting the city as a downstream impact from a carbon tax like TCI, there might be something we can negotiate with the state when we take the emergency climate resolution to the General Assembly to replace the TCI or modify the TCI so that the transition is not as painful for people who have less money and depend on driving cars and trucks for a living. So that's my pitch.
So Phil, you're doing minutes, right?
I am indeed.
Thank you. And you might want to take that sentence in the chat that Roger, and make sure that gets into the minutes.
I've got it.
Great.
Thanks.
For us to consider. Any other public comment?
I have a question. Due to Tim's intervention, we're going to be presenting to students at Simsbury High School before the next meeting. And it seems like a good opportunity to pitch how they might be involved in this process. And I guess I just wanted some clarity, like, is the Board of Education being tasked with creating some kind of an advisory board of students? How would you want students to participate in the Clean Energy Task Force? I just wanted to understand better what is being proposed.
Great. Let's see if we answer those questions as we look at the document.
Yeah, I think that's appropriate. So because we have to stick really close to what's on the paper. So, Mark, to your understanding, am I allowed to ask a question?
In the public audience?
Yeah.
I think that's just an open discussion, right? I mean,
according to Robert's Rules of Order, it's that comes down to the chairman or whoever is leading the meeting. They can make that call.
Okay, I'm leading the meeting. I have a question. I'm down with that. So, Roger, it's an interesting comment you made about minimizing the impact on the drivers. Mm-hmm. I'm curious how that would work, because whether it's a tax that's levied solely on the drivers or it goes upstream in the producers, they will clearly pass it on. Mm-hmm. The question becomes, is it, how does the accounting work for that? It mm-hmm. seems like if they pass it on, then it's also getting marked up mm-hmm. for all their administrative expenses, et cetera. And then it seems like you'd end up with more. So I'm just trying to understand what you're proposing here. Because for me, from my perspective, for a climate benefit, mm-hmm. I don't really care what form it takes as long as people begin to pay the cost of carbon.
Right. And I agree with you on that. I'm trying to, so I read all the GC3 reports and I read the integrated resources plan, and I read all the TCI modeling, the Transportation Climate Initiative stuff. My head is kind of dizzy. In these documents, there's lots of things that do this. Okay, they are at cross purposes or they clash. And so I've been talking to our CCL membership, and Susan was part of that on Sunday, and other city council members. And how do we better balance the state so that the cities can be more like active partners instead of somebody who's saying, please give us money, and the state says, well, we'll think about it. And a carbon tax or a carbon fee are critical to the success of any climate action. So what the governor has done is he's taken a step upon the recommendation of DEEP that he do this. It's a good recommendation in lieu of anything else. So I agree with you entirely on that, Bob. The way the carbon fee and dividend would work is the money collected would be sent each month to households. The way TCI works is the General Assembly, and through probably DEEP and another assigned committee or department, would look at the budget and decide what communities are disadvantaged or overburdened. So the way it's phrased is the money might go to the communities, but only some communities, and it might not get to that great swath of citizenry we have that aren't poor, but aren't well off. And that's where the carbon dividend benefits those people, because it's a check that goes straight to their house every month. And so as the power companies raise their rates, the check offsets that, and they'll have extra money for gasoline. The TCI, in terms of how it's modeled, as I best understood it, didn't fully contemplate that. And that's a concern to me. I think the state can do better. But for us to communicate that to them, we have to have that well thought out with the cities. I don't want to do it as an individual without the task forces and the city councils in Connecticut, because I want to make sure that we're all on the same page.
Right.
And so that's why I think an identification that this is a critical issue that you want to pay attention to, and you would endorse a carbon fee and dividend. By say carbon fee and dividend, the dividend means some of that money comes back to people. Whereas in the TCI, it goes to communities, and we don't actually know how that's going to get there or how it's going to be dispersed and how it's going to be spent.
Fair. Thank you. I'm going to restrain from comment on that because I don't think we can. Perhaps we can have a discussion of that when we talk about the resolution. Other comments? Sherry, you're muted.
And I have a question. Do I have to claim I'm leading the meeting to ask it?
No, I'm the leader. You can ask a question.
Okay. Roger, I just was curious, where would you suggest that line get added to the declaration? Or are you saying not to? Are you asking us to add it or to not add it?
Yes, I am asking you to add it, and
Okay.
I would say you could put it right after 6 or 7, somewhere in there. Since it's a standalone statement, not relying on the previous or the following whereas or therefores, you could put it in there somewhere.
Because I don't see any reference to the TCI.
No, and we decided not to specifically do that. And the reason is the signature by the governor for this might be significantly challenged in the state. And there are also other carbon taxes being contemplated by members of the assembly. And we have not seen those yet, so we don't know what they'll look like. And so I think the important thing in the endorsement here is the carbon fee and dividend statement, because you can say a carbon fee or a carbon tax, but without the dividend, I'm worried people aren't going to get the full benefit of how this process works with a carbon fee and dividend bill. Does that make sense?
Right. It does. And I think it's much more of a motivator, if you will, for people to buy into it.
It's a general statement, and it doesn't lock you into anything, but it allows us to carry your words with other cities to the General Assembly and have a larger endorsement across the state.
Right. Continuity in the message.
Right.
Thanks, Roger.
I greatly appreciate it. Thank you for listening for that.
Other comments? Katie, you're the only other public. Anything to add?
No, a question maybe for Roger is, does that dividend influence any individual behavior, or is it more at a organizational level? So will it change residents' behavior in any way? Will a dividend encourage them to consume either less energy to get a higher dividend, or is it entirely dependent on other organizations' behavior and consumption of energy?
That's a personal behavior question, and I don't know. We tried to model some of that, but the way Citizens Climate Lobby looks at a carbon fee and dividend is, if your power bill comes, in February, and it's been raised $10 because of the carbon fee and dividend on the front end at the source, and next to it they check that's for $20. The system has given you the wherewithal to cover that $10 increase, but we can't tell you what to do with the $20.
Yep.
That's a personal decision. And we wanted to stay out of dictating that to people, because we saw it as an impossibility, and probably not appropriate to tell you what to do with your money.
No, I think my reaction to that is, if I have more money as a result of less energy, am I going to use more energy?
Some people probably will, but when we notice the increase on a yearly basis of what the oil companies would increase the price of product coming from refineries, and then after it comes through pipelines, and then when it's distributed in state, the amount of money is enough to take the burden of this off the citizen, which doesn't have many of the people don't have the financial ability to even put solar panels on their house or get a hybrid car or an EV.
Yep.
So what we don't want them to do is suffer for something that people with a lot more money can easily do. So this is really addressing a climate and environmental and social justice issue as how this fee would be applied.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Other comments in public audience? I suspect we'll be revisiting this topic in a few minutes. All righty then. Hearing none, we are closed on public audience. Update on sustainable CT is the next agenda item. Is that Sherry? Do you want to take that?
So at our last meeting, we discussed divvying up the actions, and we discussed the new actions that are coming on board for 2021, which may or may not impact us because we don't necessarily need to recertify this year. Our next certification would be 2022, but it certainly will give us the guideline. And we discussed, which member would take up which actions based on our affiliate committee that we're on. And we also have a new member. She was not at the last meeting, but she should be at the meeting next week. So Jeff Tyndall stepped down, and in his replacement is Jennifer Batchelor, representing the Board of Ed. And I have not talked with Mike Tanka, so I wasn't sure if Mike was going to stay on, if he was staying on with this committee, or if he was going to maybe just stay on as a volunteer, or if he was not going to be involved or not at all. So I'm still looking to speak with him about that. And I'll just also kind of address the student group that Susan was asking about earlier, because that's also on the one of the initiatives that we're going to be doing is starting a student group. And Tim Walziak had volunteered to head that up. As some of you may know, that he just recently had a new baby, so figured give him a little time to just get used to the new member of the family and getting back to school and all that stuff. So we should be getting rolling with that soon. And it's going to be an informal group. It doesn't have to follow the Roberts rules or any of that. And hopefully we were looking to maybe be able to do something for Earth Day this year. I'm thinking it's probably, if we do something, it'd be small, it'd probably be virtual, just because, I don't think we're going to be out of this by then yet. But then it can kind of, create the foundation to do something bigger next year.
Comments, questions? Thank you, Sherry.
I just want to fill in, give us a visual for Sherry's comment about Tim.
Oh, I saw that. That's so cool. Been a long time, hasn't it, Mark?
Yeah, his name is Bryce.
Oh, beautiful. Gotta love it. I have a new baby, but it's covered in fur, so. All right, let's keep moving. Residential energy efficiency, well, not energy, but efficiency campaign. I think energy is implied. Mark, do you want to take that one?
Sure. So where we left off on that is, we did the little TV, the Simsbury Community TV program, and we want to put some stuff on our new Facebook page. And I understand, Ray, that that's ready to go, so we can start to put some content on. We have a Clean Energy Task Force Facebook page.
I haven't seen it, but I know Carrie was getting it ready, so I assume you heard that, and that is correct. So we just need content, and we'll get it up for you.
Yep. And I don't know what else we want to do. I think, we decided we're not going to do a mailing, but I think we do want to maybe try and promote it through social media in various ways. So let's start with the Facebook page. The Home Energy Solutions audits, I believe, are still free. I don't know if it's been officially decided how far it's going to go, but they're still free until further notice.
Yeah, I saw March as a potential end date, and then a question on the listserv as to whether that was going to continue past March.
Yep.
Who's going to drive content on the Facebook page?
Anybody want to take that on? I mean, I've got some various materials that we can start with.
So let me just throw this out there. I certainly, our original materials or materials that you have from other organizations are important, but similarly, liking and sharing external content, I'll call it, is important. There's so much out there on the benefits of energy efficiency that the reason I'm asking is if Ray, whoever's preparing the Facebook page doesn't intend to own it. Is that correct?
No, that's right. It's your content. We just have to go through us so that we can check it and put it up for you. Just that's the way it has to work because the Facebook page is through the town.
Yeah, that's fine. So then somebody here is going to kind of be moderator, if you will.
Yeah.
Right, and then we send it to Carrie, I believe, correct?
Yeah, send it through
to
Carrie.
in Tom's office.
Yeah. Yes, whether Carrie deals with her idea with it, it goes to her. She's got the main address for it. Too, so.
But so, in other words, whoever's administering it can post on it, correct? I mean, Facebook pages are like that.
Carrie is the one who will be posting for us.
Yes.
Why? Is that just a rule?
Yep.
It has something to do with the fact that I think it has something to do with it's the way the town's website's set up. It has to go through a town employee to be on the town's website or something like that. I don't know the specifics because Carrie was dealing with it. Maybe that's what.
But I mean,
yes,
so,
it's a page for both there's going to be a page for the Clean Energy Task Force and one for the Sustainability Committee. And we need to funnel. Tom wants us to funnel the information through Carrie, and she will be the one posting it.
so this is a
So
public,
I think there, like Ray was saying, I think there needs to be like a review to make sure the content is okay.
well, I mean, what about liking other content and sharing other content? That's incredibly cumbersome.
I think it's just for posting. Once you're on the website, you can use it like any other Facebook website. It's just posting the content onto the website, I think, is what we're talking about. Once it's on the site, anyone can access it. It's just the site itself posting things onto it is what I think we're talking about.
Right. She's going to be the admin, so we can't post stuff.
So original posts, but if somebody sees it and shares it to the Clean Energy Facebook page, that's fine. Okay. So then, so then we don't really have an admin.
Within the task force, no.
Okay. All right.
So if anybody wants to work on content with me, I've got materials that we can share.
Yeah, I could certainly. I'm not the most design. I mean, that's not my wheelhouse, I would say, but I can definitely create some easily consumable media. So yeah, if I just take a look at the content and we pull out, and make kind of a toolkit and we can do some time boxed releases,
Great. Yeah. And if I would encourage, now that we have this Facebook page, I would encourage all of us to generate content, right? We don't get to post it, but we can send it to Carrie. But if you see an interesting article about efficiency or, electric vehicles or something, there's a ton of stuff out there. Then I don't know if we officially need to go through the task force each time. I think within reason, you can just send stuff to Carrie.
Well, we don't need more than one gatekeeper, I don't think.
But that's Carrie, right?
Right. Yeah. I think if Carrie's going to be the official filter, then we just send what we got.
Yep.
Can we publicize amongst this group her email address?
Yeah, I don't know Carrie. Do you have it?
I have it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll forward it.
Yeah, can you just share it with the group?
Yeah.
Great.
All right. Other things on energy efficiency.
Well, let's keep thinking about it. We talked about, and I don't know if we ever reached out to Wendy Max-Tudis, because at the Board of Selectmen meeting, when we talked about this, the energy efficiency campaign, she said she was going to get an audit and was pretty excited about it. We talked about maybe filming somebody getting a home energy audit.
We talked about Eric.
And Eric had one, and I think it was within 3 years, so I don't think he can do it again.
I know somebody who I believe either was requesting to get one done and was having a hard time getting a call back.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I can inquire if they did have it, and if they have not had it yet, maybe they'd be willing to have it filmed.
Because SCTV could do that, I think. They would send a cameraman. So in general, if we have, any ways of promoting these, let's continue to do it. But
Yeah, testimonials would be great.
yep.
Cool. All right, other comments? Excellent. Item 4. This one should take a while. Discussion of the climate emergency resolution.
Right. So I sent out a draft like an hour ago or an hour and a half ago now. Because Tim asked me earlier, he said, if you have, let me pull up so we're all looking at the same thing. Let me pull up the version that we had. It was this one. It was version 3, and I'll share that. And we talked about that at the last meeting, and I guess I never quite got came to peace with this, because we had this bit in here about we will charge the Simsbury Clean Energy Task Force with creating a climate action plan within 6 months. And then the town manager and the superintendent of schools would direct all the boards and committees to develop their plans within 6 months. And Tim asked, is that climate action plan going to be the same as our energy plan, or is that different? And my first response was, we really don't want to have two, so it would be the one. But the more I thought about this, a climate action plan is a fairly broad document, right? It's more than just energy, right? It's water, it's wastewater, it's storms, resiliency, sustainability issues. So it's beyond our remit. Second of all, I don't think we have the bandwidth to write a climate action plan.
No.
So I got back to looking around at different versions. I went to the Middletown version, and long story short, I redrafted a couple of points here. I can do this. Let me get the one that's not clean. Get the dirty version here, so you can see the changes I made. So here is. Can you see that document still?
Yep.
All right. So this shows the changes. So first of all, be it resolved by the town of Simsbury and the Simsbury Board of Education. And you can see this bit that's crossed out into, I took out all that about charging the Clean Energy Task Force.
Yeah.
I replaced it with kind of the Middletown model, which is the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Ed will work with the town manager and superintendent of schools to establish an emergency mobilization effort that, with appropriate financial and regulatory assistance from state and federal authorities, will aim to end greenhouse gas emissions generated by the town and schools by December 31st, 2030. So it's first bit is the emissions of the town and the schools, not the wider community, but town and schools. The other point that I thought of, this is a document we're asking the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Ed to sign, so they can really only commit themselves to actions, right? So here they're going to work with the town manager and the superintendent to establish an emergency mobilization effort and reduce emissions generated by town schools. And the Middletown document had end emissions by December 31st, 2030. Right? That may change as we start to discuss this. Maybe it's reduced by 80% or 90%. But let's start with, for the town and schools, the town manager and the superintendent are going to launch this effort to end emissions by 2030. So that's the first big, other than declaring a climate emergency. And then the next one, it didn't change radically, but I just changed the wording again, that the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Ed, they kind of can only commit themselves to do something. So what we're saying here is Board of Selectmen and the Board of Ed, this is in item 3 here, will urge the town manager, that urge was the wording for Middletown, will urge the town manager and superintendent of schools to direct all town and school boards, heads, commissions to establish plans to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by the town, schools, and the wider community. So this is the wider community, placing the highest priority on providing the benefits of a clean energy economy. I think that those are all the changes. So if I do one thing here, if I go up to just make this easier on your eyes, that's the version with the changes made. So let me just pause there and see what. So the Clean Energy Task Force is not even in here now.
Yeah. So I have a couple of comments, Mark. I think in your therefore be it resolved, I think the town of Simsbury includes the Board of Education. I like that you've broken it out in the numbered items below, but I don't think it's necessary in that one.
Okay.
Just one man's opinion. And there's greenhouse gas emissions. That's a pig in a poke. That thing is, it's not going to happen. It's virtually impossible for it to happen. It's 2021 right now. You know, if they wanted to, if there was unlimited resource, sure, maybe we could do that. But there's no flipping way. In my opinion. So, I mean, I'd be looking to, end greenhouse gas, minimize, or.
Do you think the word aim softens that at all for you?
No.
No.
I mean, yeah, we all want to, in the limit, we should end greenhouse gas emissions. And yet the technology is unlikely to be available at a reasonable cost by 2030. We could say reduce below, what does the Paris Accord use? I think it's 20, I can't remember the year, but the idea is to reduce below a benchmark year. Now, I don't know if we have that benchmark.
Yeah, that's another point. I think the first thing we need to do is a real inventory. What if we said reduce greenhouse gas emissions generated by town schools by 80% off of the 2020 level?
Yeah, I mean, that's something like that. To be 2021 level, because this isn't going to be done until 2021. I really don't like, in response to Phil, I really don't like the word aim at all. We'll set a goal to reduce greenhouse gas emissions.
Yep, makes sense.
An effort that will reduce. And the caveat in here is with appropriate financial and regulatory assistance. So there's going to be some things like, Public Works, he'd love to get rid of all the diesel trucks.
Right.
But to replace those with electric is going to cost millions of dollars. So
yeah, and we don't have it.
Yeah, and I would say even more than just that. I mean, like, you're talking about replacing all of the gas boilers and furnaces in all the building to replace that so they're not using that. A couple buildings still have some oil in them.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Did you replace the electricity with that? I mean, that might be doable, but it's just, you're not going to get someone to pay $1 million to replace the boilers in all the buildings to what may or may not be something that can run off of electricity. Even if the technology is there, you're changing something that works, something that doesn't work for a high-end goal, and I think we all want that, but it's just, I don't think this town's going to get behind that.
No, I agree completely. That's why I'm saying 80% may be ambitious, but it's a good plug number right now.
And I do think that as you get towards the top of the curve, it's going to get harder and harder, but you could probably like 50% with some just common sense change. And then from 50 to 80, maybe you make some hard choices, but like 80 to 100, I mean, you're going to replace all the generators that we don't replace that often. I mean, there's all the little stuff that just to get to that, there's just certain things that are just going to be real hard the closer you get to that 100%.
Yeah, no, I agree with you.
Might be able to make it, but
keep in mind, this is an emergency declaration, right? We're saying the house is on fire. We need a wartime effort here.
But if we do reduce by 80%, that's a great wartime effort.
I agree.
And saying you will reduce by 80% doesn't cap it, whereas aiming for 100%, what does that necessarily mean?
Yeah, it's meaningless.
Especially in 10 years. I think that's, 25 years, maybe you can make a case that technology will advance. We're going to have to replace some of the stuff anyways. We can make some of those changes over time, but in
end of life replacements and such.
Yeah, exactly. Some of that's 25, 30 years out where we are right now. Assuming the technology is even there. Like the trucks, they thought about doing electric, but the diesel trucks that are available to replace with electric, they're not quite up to what they need for what they use them for.
Yeah, so that's where they're going to need, the federal government to step in and provide some pretty big subsidies for electric school buses. And so is everybody generally happy with this reduced by 80%?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I'm on board with it.
The question, so, you made a really important point. That we need a greenhouse gas inventory first.
Yep.
I mean, maybe that's part of this bullet that will work with the town manager to A, complete a greenhouse gas inventory, and then B, reduce greenhouse gas emissions generated by town schools by 80%. Because if we don't have an inventory, like who the hell's measuring the metrics,
Yeah, that's certainly implied. I guess the question is, do we need to put that in here? Is that
maybe it's supporting documentation later or something.
Right.
I see your point. So having softened number 2, the word urge in number 3 is like terrible, I think.
So that's where
the town manager and superintendent of schools work for the board of selectmen and the board of ed. Direct them.
Can the board, I didn't ask Tom this, can the board of selectmen direct the town manager to do something?
Yep.
No expert, but that's kind of the way it works. They set the agenda for the town manager and she implements it.
And we could do that up here too, right?
Yeah, that would direct, and I would use the same word in 3.
To direct them to direct.
Well, to instruct, we'll direct the town manager, superintendent of schools to instruct all town, blah, blah, blah. Same word, different spelling.
And this one doesn't have a date or an amount, but this is the wider community. I wonder if we should tie it to the. Should we have the same? I didn't think about this. Should we have the same numbers in there?
No, I think you're reaching there because of what you said earlier. I think it was a good thought you had that the town can't really tell people what to do.
Right.
So I think that's more of an aspirational goal, and I actually like that.
Right. That was the Middletown wording. So the rest did not change. We're asking the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Ed to sign it. So to Roger's suggestion about endorsing the carbon fee and dividend, let me just look at, because we talked about this, and I just want to review. I pulled up the minutes from the September meeting, and this is what we said before. Mark said the legislation is worthwhile, but not in our CTF goals to work with state and federal governments to enact legislation. Our responsibilities to the Board of Selectmen. We should make recommendations to the boards. You recommended the CTF and that CETF give a presentation to the board at a future date. So that's where we were on this. I mean, I am remain very much in support of the carbon fee and dividend. My only question is does it belong in here? I don't know the answer to that. I mean, we can revisit that. We did discuss it once.
So there may be a middle ground here. I mean, I remember that discussion, Mark. Let me go scroll here a minute.
7, it's sort of included in 7 in a general sense, right?
You could add something specific to 7. That's where I was going with this, and say, potentially including provisions for carbon fee and dividend. You know, I'm a little on the fence about carbon fee and dividend. I hear what Roger's saying there. And I think Katie's question was right on the money. You know, if it doesn't cost me anything, why am I cutting back? I mean, the whole idea of a tax or a fee or whatever you want to call it is that it makes carbon visible. It makes carbon a part of the cost. It closes the circular economy, whatever you want to call it. It makes carbon the explicit the cost of carbon. If that's then refunded to me, like, I'm not sure how that drives any behavior change. Similarly, the tax, and I get the concern that it gets directed to a community rather than the people. But isn't that pretty good part of the EJ agenda? There are communities that are being inequitably impacted by this. So, I mean, this becomes a whole kettle of fish that I'm not sure we want to open with this resolution unless we are softer and we say something to the effect of, and they advocate potentially including provisions for a carbon tax and or fee and or dividend, and just, that's not our concern with this, how it's implemented. What our concern is that the town commit to advocacy. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
So then, based on that, is that sufficient text to also say, I guess what you just said, like with that line, whether it be 6 or 7, our future priorities regarding legislation or how we advocate for, reading into 7, how we advocate for these things, is that a sufficient statement to say, there's definitely something to entertain with the carbon, tax and dividend, without naming it in here?
I think we could go either way, Phil. It just seems to me that I like the idea of naming it as long as it's shown as potentially including rather than do this. Because I do think it's a really, really important part of the equation. We have to, at some point, begin, it kind of takes you from a take, make, waste economy to a circular economy. You have to make the costs and everything explicit. Look, if we paid the real costs of everything that we use, we'd be buying really different stuff. So I think it's important. Other opinion?
It's me. Thanks.
So
I have a comment.
Go for it.
Can you hear me all right?
Yep.
Yeah, I accidentally disconnected myself. So
Nice.
what I was wondering though is, should we be cross-referencing some other actions or other goals that might have already been implemented as well, such as the amendments to the POCD, taking a look at the sustainability actions and maybe collaborate and wrap that into this?
That's a really good point. I wonder if point 6 should specifically mention the POCD.
Yeah, because I'm quickly looking through the 2020 action list, and it does get involved into the POCD setting a percentage goal. So that's what prompted my thinking that maybe we should take a look at this a little further before narrowing it down to a particular number, or maybe write in that we include these other documents or review them.
And just in case not everybody knows, POCD is Plan of Conservation and Development, which we do every 10 years. Every town has to do every 10 years. I don't think the POCD has percentage greenhouse gas reduction goals in it. But I think that is such.
I mean, certainly, Tom may have some documents with certain percentages in there.
Our energy plan has some numbers in there.
Yeah, exactly. Like for instance, there's notes in here with regards to the energy use across all municipal buildings, reducing its energy use by 10%. That's a minimum number. But it does incorporate the POCD because they have to take these into consideration as it relates to, let's say, housing and those types of things, as far as sustainability and as well as just being able to respond to, let's say, a disaster type situation. All those things are taken into consideration in the planning of the conservation development. So that's why I think that they may have something built into that as well. It's worth at least taking a look at it.
In the POCD, you mean?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. I can take a look. I know Bob and I were involved in getting stuff into that, so but we can take another look at that. I think the POCD is such a foundational planning document that I think it does warrant specific mention in point 6. I don't know.
There's so much information in there. It was quite amazing going through it for the certification.
You could just for here.
Okay, so here I did find something that mentions it. So, for instance, one of the sub-actions for developing a municipal energy plan, it says residential business energy plan is 10 years on a cycle with the POCD. Plan must be updated when it is time to recertify. So that's just one sub-item. So it does get involved in that to some extent.
Yep. So I think, this climate action, I got to be careful. We're not talking about a climate action plan anymore. So I've got to clean this up. We're referring to something that no longer exists. So we're talking about a mobilization effort. All right, let me go back and fix those.
Yeah.
Actually inform the emergency mobilization effort. I just said something general here. Plans. So where did we land on? My question about the carbon fee and dividend is, it is such an important part of the solution. But one might ask why we just included that one. I mean, there are others, maybe not quite as important, but very important, fixing virtual net metering in Connecticut, a modern grid. I mean, there are a lot of things that are, essential.
So,
It just seems to me
So, I
this
mean-
document kind of stays above that level of detail.
Yeah, I guess that's kind of the point I was making with like, does 7 kind of already say that? This is like higher level. It's not specifically getting into what legislation you would advocate for, but you know, carbon fee and dividend could certainly be one of those things you'd advocate for. I do get the point Roger was making, though, as to laying that out specifically in the potential bargaining, or I guess collaborative power that has with other municipalities and entities when actually bringing these to the floor in the Capitol.
yeah, I mean, I could argue both sides of this discussion pretty easily, you know. I do really like mention. I mean, we could even make it including going down to 7 in the advocacy, you know, potentially including and have a short bullet list, you know, grid modernization, price on carbon. I mean, without weighing in on whether it's a tax or a fee and a dividend. Because it's so easy to go down the rat hole of and do this and do this and do this. But there, I think, are a few things that are kind of really key. You could say potentially including, but not limited to.
Yeah.
So carbon, grid modernization, you know, electrification, et cetera, et cetera. Pick 3 or 4 of them and kind of leave it at that. And the new puppy's a little out of control. Sorry. I'd be pretty comfortable with just, you know, potentially including, but not limited to 3 or 4 bullets. I mean, Mark, what do you see as the top 3 or 4 things?
I mean, if we included, you know, we're talking about greenhouse gas emissions, or a lot of times these plans talk about carbon neutrality. And if we addressed at a general level, including the appropriate pricing of carbon, something, you know, factoring of carbon into the economy. But my guess is that's not, I think, I'd ask you, Roger, that's probably not going far enough, right? You would want
Roger's not here.
Oh, Roger's not here. He's left. Okay.
Yeah.
Susan, maybe that, I think Roger would really want us to mention the dividend part. And that's a specific policy. And that to me is just going a little further than this document. I mean, I can see a general comment about including the, you know, reflecting the price of carbon in appropriately in the economy or something.
Yeah, I would be fine with that. I agree with you. I don't think we should advocate for a specific methodology here. Frankly, if the boards choose to take this up, it'll be for them to study what they want to advocate for.
Right.
I mean, hell, the Board of Ed might advocate for something different than the Board of Selectmen does.
And actually 7 is advocating for coordinated action, not even so much, maybe we say action and policies.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then you can, where you have the cursor, you could say, including but not limited to ensuring an appropriate price of carbon. Price for carbon. It's included in the energy markets or something like that.
It's not even, yes, it's more broadly, is
Is implemented. And I'm not dictating here. I'm just throwing out ideas.
Yeah.
Somebody's got better ideas, I'm open.
we've been limited to ensuring is reflected in the economy.
Sure.
So I think this document is not going to get through the sausage maker in exactly this form.
I agree with that. So,
But what I would propose is that we approve this as the task force. I guess I'll make a motion that we approve this draft climate emergency resolution and initiate a discussion with town officials.
so we have a motion on the table. I will second that.
Town officials and the community.
Town officials, I'm sorry, what?
And the community.
We probably want to go to town officials first.
Absolutely. Yep. But after that, we're going to want to.
So can I suggest the motion read something to the effect of that we approve this motion, this draft as written, and begin discussions with town officials and subsequently the community?
Yep. Great.
We're not approving it as written yet, correct?
No, Mark just,
Or are we?
So
that's the motion.
we're approving this draft climate emergency declaration resolution.
The draft and then bring it to the board or just start discussions?
Yep.
Okay.
I talked to Tom earlier, and we were going to set up something with Eric Wellman, Sean Askham, and Maria, and then a separate one with the Board of Ed folks.
Okay.
That's first.
Yep.
Do you need a motion?
No, he's made a motion
I'm sorry. Okay.
Yep.
and I'm seconding it. Any discussion? Shall we vote? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed?
I'm just abstaining because I missed the editing of the first part. But it's good to see everybody.
That's all right. We'll just pretend you didn't show up yet.
Thanks. That's fine.
All right, so the motion carries with one abstention.
Great. It's going to be a fun discussion, I think.
Yes, it is.
But the ground's changing underneath us, I think.
All right, so that takes care of that agenda item. Next one is update to the energy plan, and I will be the first one to say I have not looked at it again since I sent you the last set of comments.
I haven't done much, but let me just update us, because I think, when I was thinking, oh man, we're gonna have to write a climate action plan. We also need to work on energy plan, and is that part of the climate action plan, or how does that work? And you know what? We just need to stick to our knitting. We need to update our climate, our energy plan. And so let me just pull up where we left off on that. This is the plan that we did 2 years ago now. And this is a template that we created. So kind of get a visual of this. This is a template that we created. I work with People's Action for Clean Energy, PACE, and we've shared this template on our website. And I think there are 4 towns now in Connecticut that have created energy plans based on this template.
Nice.
And we stole the format from Fairfield. So, what
but you modified it.
Catherine Dividend in West Hartford has created the West Hartford plan, and she has taken it and put it on steroids. And Catherine says we can have what she's done. So this is the West Hartford plan. And you will see it looks and feels in some parts a little bit familiar. She's really, that's very similar to our page. By the numbers, a lot of the same graphs. She's got a lot more in here. This page is very much taken from the format that we had, but it's even more attractive.
Yeah.
So she's happy for us, and there's a lot more in here. So what we basically have permission to to borrow from this. So I think some of the formatting is much nicer than ours. So we'll do that. So I think what we want to do is kind of to go back to ours where we left off. I think we can sort of identify a bunch of tasks that we need to do. I think what we want to do is let's produce a 2021 energy plan. So we need to go through every bit here and see what needs updating. We probably want a new picture. We probably want a bunch of pictures. It has a bunch of nice pictures in West Hartford. I can help with a lot of the graphs and the numbers because I've got that information. We just want to go through all this. These, we probably want to reformat them and then take a look at these actions, see if there's any of those that, either are no longer relevant or we've done or new things to add. So there's these 5 or so pages, do that for all those. And then I think the most important is what are our plans? And I kind of like the way West Hartford has done the plans. It's kind of 2021-2022 and beyond.
Yep.
So what I'll do, I will send the West Hartford, I'll send both around so you have both. And I would say if everybody takes a look at it and says, yeah, I'm really interested in this part, I'll take this or I'll go get some pictures and really take a look at both and say, we really like what they did here in West Hartford. Let's bring that into ours let's try to, it's January now, let's try to get this done, get another draft. Realistically, it's going to be a couple months, but, let's try not to let it drag on all year. Let's if everybody kind of takes on a piece of this, and Katie, you're invited to, even though you're not an official member, you're invited to, to take part if you feel so called. Or other people, drag other people in.
Screaming and kicking.
Yeah, so why don't we just leave it at that, and then we'll take it up next meeting, and hopefully we'll all have kind of given a little thought to what part of it we're inspired to take on.
Thank you,
Sounds
Mark.
good.
That's great stuff. Point of information. Okay, Katie, are you joining the Clean Energy Task Force? Am I opening a can of worms here?
No, I'm just visiting at the moment.
Yeah.
Okay.
And,
Interested party.
Just baiting the hook.
We have the problem that Mike left, and Mike and Katie are not at the same party affiliation, so we're not able to invite Katie to join right now.
Yeah, I don't think we want to talk about party affiliation. I don't know about Tim, but I'm no longer a Republican either. I haven't been for a while, for I would say reasonably obvious reasons. But
Same here, Bob.
we're out of balance in a big way.
Yeah.
It's really hard to stand up, and for anybody in the sustainability circle, stand up and go, yeah, I'm a Republican.
I feel like going to a Board of Selectmen meeting and at a public audience and just griping about this. Because it really does limit, we've got a wonderful person who'd be interested in taking part, but we can't get them to join. I can see why you don't want the whole task force to be the same party, but anyway.
Yeah, but right now we kind of are. Well, I'm not a Democrat either. I'm an unaffiliated. So
But nothing stops you from taking part in meetings and getting involved.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I'm happy to help with the document. I
sweet.
PowerPoint skills professionally, so we might as well
Oh,
use them.
good.
Great.
Oh, you win. Ding, 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 ding. Okay. All right. 2021 meeting schedule.
So
I'm good with Wednesdays.
So I sent that around.
Just for the record, I mean, I'm in the middle of job transition again, because I seem to be continually in the middle of job. And out of one, deciding on another. So, my schedule is totally up in the air at the moment. Wednesdays are fine for me. Do we need a motion to adopt this schedule?
Actually, we do. That's really good that you mentioned that. Tommy reminded me of that. Yeah.
Does someone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to adopt the schedule for 2021.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
That was Phil?
Indeed.
Cool. All right. Anyone opposed? Let's just go that way. Okay. All in favor? Aye.
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 Unanimous again. Beautiful. Okay. So that's passed. Mark, you'll send that to the clerk to be published?
Yep, I did.
Thank you. Good.
I mean, I will.
Right. You will, now that we have a motion passed, right? Good job. Okay. Other business. Do we have any other business?
One really quick thing. You may recall, or I'm not sure if we even talked about it, but there was this group called American Council for an Energy Efficient Economy, and we did so they do various things, but one of the things they've done is a survey of energy efficiency and policies and of cities. And then they said, let's try to take that survey and apply it to smaller cities and towns. And so we had an opportunity, and the Sustainable Connecticut team reached out to us and said, who would like to do this for the town? So we volunteered. And so we did the survey, and the results are in, and drum roll, where is it? Here's the table. Can I make this bigger?
19.5 out of 70.
So we are number 13th in the nation.
Sure we are. In what?
Of the 30 surveyed.
13 out of 30, yeah. It's Cupertino. So West Hartford got 6. And
what number are we?
13. 12, actually. Oh, no, so we're tied for 12.
And we're measuring what?
So here's your categories: local government operations, community-wide initiatives, building policies, energy and water utilities. And I can show you the survey. To be honest with you, we didn't try that hard.
So we're not even Avis. We're just like.
Right. Could you all see that? Was I sharing my screen?
No.
Not yet.
No.
Oh, so you wonder what I'm talking about here. Sorry.
Yeah, that was kind of my point.
I'm sorry.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah. It was a bunch of questions about, do we have a goal for the municipality and for the wider community for greenhouse gas reductions? There was all kinds of stuff, urban heat island effects. So you could tell it was a little biased towards cities because that's where the survey was generated. But there were some things we could, maybe at a future meeting we'll just pull the thing out and look at our where we were deficient. So it looks like we were kind of low in local government operations. Yeah,
it'd be hard to be lower.
Yeah. So just an FYI, I think what we're going to do is, Tom suggested that I'll write like just a memo to Maria so that this gets in the her Board of Selectmen notice. But I don't think it's worthy of a larger press release or anything.
No.
And did anybody see the article just on that? Is it Simsbury Life or the local publication just came out? There's an article about the Avon Clean Energy Task Force in there.
Oh, no, I didn't see that.
I did. I saw that. Yep. They had a very nice piece.
Yep. So let's
Very
do that
nice.
maybe if we pass our climate resolution and we can start to brag about our stuff.
I never even saw the press release. I saw the press release that was generated for certification, but I didn't see it in any of the periodicals, any of the media.
No.
I didn't see it in the Patch or the Life or what was the other one?
Valley Life or
The Valley Press.
yeah. No.
Yeah.
So, we could do a nice article like the Avon one.
Yep.
But why don't we wait till we have some bigger news?
Something to brag about.
Hey, yeah. Just one item I wanted to bring up. So I did find out the friend I mentioned earlier about the energy audit. They did have the audit already, but they're having the insulation installed next week. I didn't know if that was something that would be of interest to consider to film or not. If you'd want me to inquire.
I think
I would say no, probably not as interesting. The audit's got so many features. You've got the blower door, the weatherization, the light bulbs, the shower heads, and then all the rebates and things. Who did we just lose? We lost Phil?
Lost Ray. But you're the host now.
We lost Ray. Okay.
So,
Apparently.
well, I'll inquire. Maybe they know if somebody else requested an audit. So I'll see if there's anybody else that we can approach.
Great.
Cool.
Okay.
All right. Open forum. Anybody? Keeping us from dinner. And the dog's banging on my door.
And around a pop.
Yeah. Hey, for the record, because we're in open forum, I highly recommend handicapped dogs. We have a 1-year-old Australian Shepherd that is blind and deaf.
Really?
Most remarkable animal I've ever met.
My son.
Wow.
Where'd you pick that one up?
Australian Shepherd.
We found him my daughter in Oregon actually found him online, and we went up to Albany 2 weeks ago, north of Albany, and met him. And we've had a number of deaf dogs. It's just something that we've kind of developed an expertise in, and we thought, wow, this could be interesting.
Wow.
And we went up, met him, and I guess there was 10 applications for him, and they picked us and brought him down Saturday. So we've only had him about 4 days. And it's an astonishing thing. He has mapped the whole house in his head. He can navigate around without running into stuff. And he goes outside and he walks down the path and makes a left turn at the door, waits for the door to open, must feel it or something. And
Wow.
he'd never seen steps before. He's doing the back steps. It's really amazing. So I highly recommend it if you're
They're beautiful dogs. My son has an Australian Shepherd.
Yeah, we've had like 5 of them, and this one he's a double Merle. If you're familiar with it, it's kind of a genetic thing, and some end up blind and deaf, and
Wow.
it's
Good for you.
so he's cool, man. He's pretty neat.
That's really cool.
So I just thought I'd put that pitch in for blind deaf dogs, All right. Adjournment. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I move.
Second?
I'll second it.
Any objection?